Hey, good morning. Right? Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. It really is. So thanks to Money 2020. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for taking the time. This is a great show, a great conference. We're off to a great start. So great pleasure to kick off the second day and really spend a few minutes talking with you about some of the work that we've done in tracking consumer payments over the last few years, the implications to our industry, all of our organizations, and certainly us as individual consumers. So what I'm going to spend the majority of the time talking about for the next 15 minutes is our 2012 to 2014 survey, focusing on the 2014 results, the trends, the implications, what that means. One item I do want to make sure that I'm clear on is the results were pre-Apple Pay, so we plan to follow up shortly to see some of the implications from what Apple Pay will be, but in particular over the next couple years. One thing that we're really seeing in the industry, and I know one thing that makes Money 2020 so impactful to all of us right now, is a dissolving of boundaries, right, between financial services, telecom, high tech. What does it all mean? What are the implications to us now, 1, 3, 5, and 10 years into the future? So how are we going to work with that? Another item that we've seen just recently in the last couple weeks is a battle that's going on at the point of sale. So it's moved from the back office and some of the challenges and how people are going to work together to now the front consumer impact point of sale. How is that going to be addressed now? And how is it ultimately going to be worked out? Some of the key questions for us that I know we're discussing here and how we're going to figure this out and discuss it next year. And so finally, consumers will vote. They will decide the winners. And the people who will decide for consumers are millennials. You'll see some of the data that we're going to talk about that puts millennials at the forefront of making the choices, deciding technology winners, socializing it, and ultimately training Gen X, Gen Y, and others, because they are the ones who are going to decide who's in your pocket, who's on your phone, who's at the center of your digital life. So let's get into it. So I want to go over real quickly some of the themes of our research. Now, number one is evolution in the ways to pay, right? We're all very clear in seeing that it's evolving from standard cash, check, credit card, debit card, adding to through the phone, digital currencies. What does that mean to us? We'll get into more details on each of these later. New reality for digital currencies. Purpose is, they're here to stay. They're a fit-for-purpose currency. They're going to be here for a long time, and we'll see how they continue to evolve, but there certainly is a place in our daily lives and certainly for international transactions with them. Mobile payments are on the move. We'll talk about some of the uptake just from 2012 to 2014, a huge jump. And so we'll explore that a little bit, as well as what it's going to mean for 2016 and beyond. Number 4, upping the ante in mobile payments. Consumer implications and who they think should be providing their services to them. One of the things that we're talking most about now is who they believe should be providing it to them, how we're already seeing that they're fickle, what the impact Apple Pay is going to have from whether it's a network provider, whether it's a high-tech company, whether it's a bank, whether it's a telecom, or someone else. And then finally, number 5, which is really my favorite number, is driving the adoption, right? What's going to push people to accept and use mobile payments? Addressing the non-user side, which is going to be really important because there's been a big step in non-users and what their concerns are about security. It's gone up 12% just in the last year, that they are concerned about security and privacy. How are we as an industry going to give them enough value, make it worth their while to take the next step to use and adopt mobile payments? And then finally, underlying it all, the foundation of this and how it's going to be into the future is millennials. And millennials are going to drive the discussion. They're at the core of the entire shift. This is the center of their life. This is what they're pushing out. This is what's going to drive volume through the system. This is what's going to drive transactions. This is what's going to decide the winners. So some of the key results to talk about real quick. So 54% of the people will still expect to use cash on a weekly basis in 2020. That means 46% of the people that are out there will no longer expect to use cash on a weekly basis. It's a pretty significant jump, and you'll see some of the other numbers on the next page. Right now, 18% of people expect to use digital currencies in 2020. You do the math, and I know it's a little early, right? That's a whole lot of people. It's almost 60 million people in 2020 that expect to use digital currencies. And right now, we see some numbers that show 8% of people are already using digital currencies. What does that mean to your business? What does that mean to your operations? 40% of people were already using their mobile phone as a payment device. Again, a big step from what it was in 2012 and what it's going to be going forward. And as I mentioned on the last slide, 72% of the people believe that network providers, the card brands, are the ones who should be providing their mobile payment, their digital wallet, all of those services, followed closely by a few others. I'm going to spend a few minutes on those. But currently, they're in the pole position. How are they going to maintain that position? What does that mean to them going forward? How are they going to stay on top? And then again, 79%, right? Everybody loves a bargain. Everybody loves a sale. Everybody loves a discount. Driving adoption is going to be through getting that discount. And we can all thank Starbucks for what they've done to begin the adoption, but also setting the expectation for people that if you use this, you are going to get something back. So understanding how that works, and look at the number, that is going to help drive adoption. So who is the organization that's going to provide that complete end-to-end experience and make it seamless and effective and easy to use, right? It's easy to manage the transaction, but how are you going to make it a seamless, unending service? And then 52% of the millennials, right? They're the ones who are driving adoption of mobile payments. So I want to talk for a little bit about the future use of payment instruments. This is the first study that I've seen, and the Federal Reserve has done a great job over the last 25 plus years of posting results on payment trends. You've seen this steady march of credit and debit card transactions into the future. These are the first numbers that I've seen that show the future expectations for credit and debit card transactions to go down while consumers shift their spend to other devices, right? You have more options, so you would expect it to lift all boats. So a big step. And then also the continued decline of cash, which will go on for quite a long time, right? There's always going to be a place for cold, hard cash. At least it seems now. A couple other things to point out here. So the digital currency number, right? This is what blew us away. And I'll spend a little bit more time on digital currencies, but just to set the stage so that we're all clear on what the definition is of digital currencies. And we probably spent an extra week going back through the numbers, validating the definition, making sure that, is this right? Well, it is. The numbers speak for themselves, not subject to any interpretation. But here's the definition of digital currencies. We define digital currencies as a form of currency or medium of exchange that is electronically created and stored, such as Bitcoin, Litecoin, Purecoin, and Ripple XRP. Simple, straightforward definition. So to avoid any confusion, I want to make sure that these numbers are based on that very narrow, strict definition. So you see the numbers at 8% today, very high, 18% going forward into the future across the board. Millennials are at 13% today and 27% in 2020. Huge numbers on a weekly basis. You're also seeing, you have to really note out the 7% increase in PayPal. So you can see their branding and the position. And this is pre-Apple Pay and others, but how was their brand know? How were they positioned to exploit this into the future? And one of the most interesting findings was the check side. It was flat. And millennials in particular expected a 3% increase in the use of checks. That made us scratch our head a little bit. Why do they think they're going to have to use checks going forward? And what this means is that there's this real opportunity, right? An unmet need in the market that really hasn't been solved yet from the consumer experience. So these numbers are very interesting. We've been tracking and trending them over time, and certainly we'll follow up again for 2016. We'll probably do a couple mini surveys in between to delve a little bit deeper into some of these. So mobile payments, right? I was a bit surprised when we looked at this that the daily use from 2012 to 2014 was a little bit flat. You would have think there would have been some more uptick in the daily use, but it was relatively flat. But you can see how people are beginning to use mobile payments and have it integrated into their digital life as the flexibility is there. Well, maybe it's your wife in a lot of ways, your digital, your wallet, your phone, because it is at the center of your life. It's central to what you're doing, your experiences with your friends, your family, and how you're conducting business and transactions, right? Getting it fully integrated is going to be the most important thing, and who can master that seamless experience, and in particular, master it for millennials. They, again, are the ones that are driving the spend, the volume, and socializing it out across the board. So you see the numbers go up, up to 40%, a 24% increase in just 2 years. But this does mean that there's a lot of opportunity out there to secure the first experience for people, right? Even though it's gone up 40%, there's still 60% of the people out there that have smartphones that still have not done their first mobile transaction. That is a lot of opportunity to be that first experience, to get at the top of a wallet, to drive that relationship, to really bring value to individuals and to secure that personal relationship. It's about moving from transactions to relationships. How can you do that in a seamless way that's not intrusive to people's lives? It only takes one event to begin to turn that off. And then once you get turned off when you're pushing offers, it's very difficult to get turned back on. One item that we are going to spend a little time on is the non-user concerns. Very concerned about security, very concerned about privacy, and the numbers, as I mentioned, have gone up 12% to about 57%. This is their primary concern of why they say they will never use mobile payments. Well, a lot of people probably said that about doing transactions on the internet, but eventually the value proposition was there, the socialization was there, the training and the communication that you'll be protected, that there's real value for you there. So this gets to that opportunity. How are you going to be part of capturing that 60%? Who is the winner going to be in getting that 60%? I mentioned the providers before. So this gets to who's going to be the winners. Amongst these different groups, could there be somebody else? But this, at this current point in time, is what's so interesting, right? And the preference really lines up the exact same for millennials here. This is where card brands are in that pole position. And this slide in particular is what I'm most interested to see in 2 years from now, or next year because of some of the results if we do it sooner. Because how is this shift occurring? What impact is Apple Pay going to have on this perspective? How are the card brands going to leverage that position and brand to get to market in a more complete way? So anxious to see this. What is MCX and the currency brand going to do to this entire piece? So this is where they stand now, but we all know that customers are fickle, right? And as the mobile device sits at the center of everybody's life, consumer life and increasingly the corporate life, who are they going to turn to provide this end-to-end service? So some of the takeaways that I wanted to get to is that the customer experience is king, right? So in all the emerging ways to pay, making sure that that customer experience, no doubt, is always seamless, it's straightforward, it's well understood, and people are communicated to well and protected well. Because once you break that trust, it's going to be very difficult for any one organization or even us as an industry in a lot of ways to get it back. We want to stay off in front of the news. We want to be in front of the news of getting value. So I'm anxious to see some of the follow-on discussions today in the fireside chat in particular, how great brands like American Express are going to continue to leverage that position, as well as some of the other conversations that are going on of focusing on that customer experience in all facets, right? And it moves from not just pushing product as an industry, but it's about solutions and services. And that solutions and services being focused on two relationships, right? It's not a point in time of handling a transaction. It's building that relationship. It's understanding what's going on in people's lives and how are you giving them an offer at the right time and place. That's not intrusive. That's not noise. It's going to be very difficult, I think, for individual consumers as we work through pushing officers and keeping to accept, allow me, you to push offers to me. Because if my phone is going off all the time, it's going to be a problem. So when it gets turned off, it's going to be a real issue. So we talked about the emerging ways to pay, right? They're going to gain momentum. It's going to continue to diversify. It's going to continue to shift. Digital currencies are a current reality. Again, the numbers blew us away, so we're anxious to get even deeper into that. But understanding what it means for retailers and finally financial institutions. What's the right way from a regulatory setup to begin to accept digital currencies? How can you do that? And so we're beginning to explore some of those with financial institutions in particular. Now, mobile payments, right, as the growth and diversification is there, opportunities are abound. 60% of people out there still haven't done it. What is that opportunity for your organization? Preferred providers, right? The time to act is now. You can't delay. You have to get to market, but get to market with a good experience. How is that going to flow through Apple Pay? How are the card brands going to do that the right way? Financial institutions, how are they going to make the right relationships to be diverse enough to get that acceptance? So this is where partnerships are really coming together in a number of different ways that are going to drive that consumer experience at the time of transaction and as we all know, geolocation. But how are you going to spend more time getting to know your customers, pushing the right information to them at the right time and place of their choosing? Incentives, as I mentioned before, incentives gives reasons to change. Who doesn't want a sale? Who doesn't want a discount? Who doesn't want a gift, right? This is what's going to push the adoption. This is what's going to really grow the industry. This is what's going to make it happen for us. So who can figure this out is going to win. And then finally, it all does come down to millennials. Millennials are the future, and the future is now. And I say the future is also now because they're the ones who are pushing it, but high-income net worth people are the ones who are adopting it at the same rate as millennials, are the same ones that are socializing it. So you have a huge group of people out here who are setting the tone and setting the pace and deciding the winners at this point in time. And the final piece is a word of caution to everybody in the industry. And we have to be very well aware of it because one misstep can, I think, cost us all. And it's privacy and security are non-negotiable under any circumstance. So as good as any offer sounds and how you can push things, making sure that you step back and always think of, is this going to add extra noise to our situation or not? So something to be very thoughtful of whenever you reach out to consumers and relationships that you make and data that you share. How can you make sure that they are in control of their life and that they know they're in control of their digital life? So I'm going to go to, real quickly, some of the poll questions that were out there to follow up against what this audience thought versus some of the numbers that we found in our survey. So this is how you can find me. And this is all online. And in our microsite, we have this, if you haven't seen it, again, it's just great data, how you can take and apply it to yourself as some other pieces. So again, a very good study that goes year over year. We're talking about some of the questions that people ask through the app. So what percentage of people no longer expect to use cash on a weekly basis, right? Our findings were that 46% of people no longer expect to use cash on a weekly basis, but a quarter of you voted that most people no longer expect to use cash. 25% of people no longer expect to use cash on a weekly basis in 2020. Interesting findings. In 2014, what percentage of consumers have used mobile transactions? As I said earlier, it's 40% of people. But about 45% of you said that less than 20% of people, almost nobody, has used mobile transactions. And then the final data point that contrasts against what we had, what percentage of millennials currently use digital currencies on a weekly basis? Our numbers show 8%, but just over half of you said that less than 10%, and essentially zero, don't use digital currencies on a weekly basis. So more to come as we analyze the implications for our organizations and our industry. Having the data, having the process, having the information is to be armed to win customers and to win business into the future. So thank you very much.